Many of us are beginning to think about the summer months, and those of us with children may be considering sending them to summer camp. What's the best way to choose a camp and to make sure it's a positive experience? Recently, we talked with Rob Grabill of the New Hampshire Camp Directors Association, along with psychologist Dr. Thurber, who says the key to success is involving your child in the decision process.
The best indicator is whether your child is expressing interest in camp. And one of the things I found in my research is that children who participate in the decision to go away for part of the summer are much less likely to be homesick. So it's important right from the outset that parents involve their children in the decision to go away, how long to go away, what kind of camp to go to, where the camp is going to be. But if the child is expressing interest, that's a great indicator.
Rob, I know with your camp, Camp Hemajawasset, that you have 7-week sessions. Is that right?
Exactly, although there also is an option for a 3.5-week half session. So a child can start with a shorter session and then move up to 7 weeks.
Well, what would you say to a parent then that's got a youngster? What age might be old enough to go to a sleepaway camp?
Most kids are old enough after 3rd or 4th grade, when they're 9 or 10. We have some younger kids who tend to be the younger siblings of older campers. But it's different for every child. Some kids are ready at 8, and some kids are really first ready to make that move when they're 11 or 12.
Chris, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I want to just add that there are camps that last 3 or 4 days or just a week, and that might be the first thing that a parent would want to try with a younger child, 6 or 7, that is expressing interest in camp, but for whom the parent has some doubt about whether it's appropriate to go to overnight camp at that point.
Well, do you recommend a day camp first? I mean, or is it okay, do you think, for a parent to say, you know what, I'm going to send my child to overnight camp?
I don't necessarily recommend day camp as a transition. It's a different thing, and day camps are wonderful. Overnight camp has the unique feature of being community living away from home, and that makes it powerful in a way that day camps are not. Not that day camps aren't a wonderful experience, but I think it's a myth that you need to transition from a day camp to an overnight camp. Some children, as Rob said, are ready for overnight camp, and that's their first camp experience, and they have a wonderful time.
Well, Rob, for a parent out there that's saying, you know what, how do I decide? Where do I go to even figure out what options might be out there? What do you recommend they do?
Well, there are a lot of different ways to find a range of camps from which to choose, and different camps will appeal to different families based on activities, based on length of stay. Word of mouth is one good way, and as camp directors, we will always recommend that prospective parents talk with families who've sent their children to camp. There are referral agencies which can work. They will refer a number of camps and have a working arrangement with them. The best way probably is to work through the American Camping Association. They have a referral service that's free to parents, and since they are beholden to no one, they have the entire range of camps. In New England, for instance, there are hundreds of camps, and the American Camping Association, through their accreditation process, knows them all. So the best way really is to work through the American Camping Association.
Let's move to the issue that I'm sure a lot of parents worry about, and you've had experience dealing with, and you have too, Chris, is homesickness. What do you do to help a young person going away to camp for the first time deal with that?
Right. The most important thing, I think, for children and parents to know is that homesickness is normal. So it's never a question of whether you're going to feel homesick, it's when. It's going to happen, and it's a question of intensity. But there are a lot of things. I mean, the good news is that there are a lot of things that parents and children can do ahead of time to prepare for the experience, and I talk a lot about it in my book, The Summer Camp Handbook, which is intended expressly for that purpose, to help prepare families to get the most out of what is an incredibly positive and powerful growth experience for children. So some of the things that they can do before camp, I mentioned the importance of involving their child in the decision right from the outset, and in all aspects, packing and shopping for camp and things like that. It's also important that children spend some practice time away from home, and that practice time simulates the time at camp to the extent possible. So for example, if there's a no phone call policy at camp, that practice time shouldn't involve any phone calls. So if it's a weekend at a friend's or grandparents', no phone calls. And in fact, I advocate practicing letter writing, which is the way that a lot of families are going to keep in touch. But you'd be surprised at how many children don't know how to address an envelope or where the stamp goes.
It's a lost art these days, I think.
It is.
Rob, what do you do for campers that come to you and they're homesick? I mean, how do you help them out?
Well, because we know it's going to happen, we're usually very well prepared. And we will have addressed it with the child beforehand. So I will say to them, hey, when you come up to me during the season and tell me that you're homesick, we'll be ready. We work a lot with staff training. We do role-playing with the staff, so we really have them ready to deal with the kids. So they're not thrown off by the fact that a child is withdrawn at mealtime, a child is softly crying at bedtime, and those are the two big times when homesickness manifests itself, are mealtime and bedtime. And we work with the kids very easily because you can tell them, A, everyone is homesick. I was homesick once. Your counselor was homesick once. We remind the kids that it is of short duration. We tell them it's like having a headache. This is not very pleasant now, but it's not going to last the entire time you're at camp.
Does it matter if you send a child away, far away or not? And do you recommend that parents come up and pay a visit if the young person's homesick?
Oh, definitely not.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The worst thing you can do for a child who is homesick is have the parents visit or have the parents talk with them. It's an instinctive reaction that parents would want to talk with their child, and many ask about that, but they do trust the experience. We've seen so many kids learn to deal with homesickness, and it's one of the best things that you can get from being at camp is learning how to deal with your homesickness. All of a sudden you think, hey, I licked this by myself, and that empowerment is very strong. So we don't wish for kids to be homesick, but learning how to manage that is one of the first real signposts of independence.
It's one of the things that parents need to know in terms of preparation for a residential camp, for an overnight camp. They will likely get a letter from the camp, from their child, expressing homesickness. And parents need to remember, first of all, that letter's 3 or 4 days old, that the homesickness could have gone away by that time, or the child is getting better at coping with it. And the parent needs to respond in an empathic way, but also a supportive way, not to come up and rescue the child. One of the biggest mistakes that well-intentioned, kind parents make is making a pickup deal with their child before the child goes to camp. If you feel homesick, I'll come and get you. And that sends a mixed message that not only might they not experience homesickness, but that the only solution is for the parent to come and rescue them, that they're incapable of coping themselves. And as Rob said, it's a powerful growth experience for children to learn how to cope with this kind of distress, overcome it, and in a sense inoculate themselves from future bouts of homesickness at camp.
College students who have been to summer camp
A little bit of help there with the experience.
Do a much better job adjusting because they've been through it. And so when they first experience that really intense homesickness, they say, hey, I've been here before. I can deal with this.
I also love to put a positive spin on homesickness for children. When I sit down and talk with them, I say, you know, Allie, you're feeling really homesick. That tells me there's something about home that you really miss and that you really love. And that's a wonderful thing, to really have something at home that you care about.
Well, you've both given us some valuable advice as we get ready to maybe send the kids away to camp for the first time. And I want to thank you both for joining us on Outlook. Thanks.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks.